Yes, okay.
All right, everyone. We are going to start the panel a little bit early. We are a little bit, this is a lot of information to cover, so we're going to have to go through everything really quickly. The panel is, damn, Zune, where'd you find this? Look into Touhou fan music with ASCII14 and I. So today we are going to go and start with looking at doujin culture overall, go into, after that, take a little bit of look into the Touhou fan base, and also go and look at specifically Touhou music and its history, along with, after that, we kind of get to the main meat of the presentation, which is first the main players in the scene, like producers and vocalists and stuff, and then also going through different circles genre by genre. So the genres we're going to cover, we're going to start with all of the Dempa stuff, move on to electronic. ASCII's going to cover Eurobeat and Orchestral, and then we're going to do kind of more the funk, rap, that kind of stuff. Then do rock, metal, and what I'm going to call vibe genres. We'll get into what those are in a bit. So starting out with the doujin, just a quick overview of doujin culture. Doujin basically is the Japanese term for indie, just independently produced content and stuff like that. Go ahead. So it refers to a lot of different works. When you normally hear doujin, usually you think of doujin manga, but it refers to a lot more. Doujin manga doujin is just short for doujin-ishi. But you also have things like doujin games, doujin music, which is what we're going to be talking about, along with some doujin like in-person events like concerts and stuff like that. Then another thing to note is we're going to use the term circle a lot. Circle is basically the artist of a doujin work. It's a little bit different from a more normal, music artist or something. Usually it's a lot more nebulous. It's as it sounds like a circle of people. A group of people who kind of work together to make it. It is less, strict, and these people work on the project. It's a lot more collaborative and freeform. Usually you have a doujin circle. They kind of go and they may collaborate with people outside of the circle, or just make it in-house and then make the doujin work. And then that is published on either online platforms, which is much more common recently, or before it was mostly at conventions. So we're going to now go into what the largest doujin project is. It is, in fact, the Touhou project. It is massive character base, massive music base, lots of mainline games, lots of side games, all of that, a lot of fan content, and we're going to obviously mostly talk about music in this panel. There's a lot of it. There's also a lot of fans. So, it is, Touhou is still, even though with how big it is still a doujin project. It is run by Zune. He's like the guy, and he will collaborate with other doujin circles to go and create official works like the manga. He gets manga illustrators to do those, and for Twilight Frontier for all the fighting games. Other thing to note about Touhou is the fan base. And so the fan base is absolutely massive, absolutely ridiculous. It was a cornerstone of internet culture, and it is it forms kind of the backbone of internet culture. It is a lot of, the vintage memes all involve Touhou. But what we're really here today for is the music. And there is a lot of this. They work on it. It works a lot differently from normal music artists, where most music artists make more money from, going and selling concert tickets and stuff like that, live performances. For doujin music, they get a lot more of it's focused on releases, on actual album releases. So you'll see a lot more album releases per group. Usually, like a lot of groups, like real groups, release like an album every year or two, whereas in Touhou you see it like 2 a year. It is not uncommon to see many of these circles with above 50 albums. So we're going to go through really quickly, do this, we're going to turn that up. we're going to show you, I made a little crossfade of some examples using Desire Drive, one of my personal favorite tracks, from Touhou 13. So we're starting out with the Zune original. Hopefully people can hear it. And now this is Foxtail Grass Studio. Very cozy. About these recently, great album. We've got some room in the front. This is Karate Secret. This is one of my favorites. I love both. Personal favorite Shibayan song. It is the reason why I ended up liking Desire Drive so much. And then the song. I like Stack. Alright guys, did you know the song? Sing along. Are you ready? There's not that one. Yeah, anyway, so Touhou music is really, there's a huge doujin, what? Yeah, don't worry about it. Touhou music is so popular for doujin works because of its highly melodic composition. Luke over there, he actually knows about music, so he's just going to cringe this entire time while I try to talk this without knowing anything about music theory. So, very iconic melodies, very simple melodies, very malleable melodies. You can kind of transform them into whatever genre you want, and they're catchy. They also come from a massive body of source material from character themes, stage themes, title credits themes, and music CDs from 19 mainline games. So you get this massive body of material, and you also have kind of like the fan base, the memes, and everything to go reference with the song. So that creates this really self-sustaining community around Touhou music, which we are now going to go into. So. We're going to answer the question posed originally of where did Zune find this. We're going to go through the history of Touhou music in Touhou. So start out PC 98, not much in terms of the fan scene yet. The Windows era with USD, 6th game, that's when it really starts, coming to be. That's when Touhou really starts coming to the mainstream, and especially moving on, it becomes more and more popular. Around on the same day that PCB released, the 7th game, that is when the first music CD came out, the first doujin music CD came out. And after that, it sparked a really big interest in making Touhou arrangements. And the first vocal arrangement and vocal CD, and also one of the most integral to the scene, is Beat Mario's Touhou Strike album. Very integral. That's where Help Me Aaron is, and that is a very, very popular song in Japan. And that really caused this, not necessarily that, but in combination with where the internet kind of was going at the time, and I believe also YouTube and Nico Nico Doga were kind of popping off at the time. And that brings us into the golden age of Touhou, where it really starts popping off. Everyone kind of knows about it. It is the backbone of internet culture at this time. The internet's really starting to pop off in 2008, and this was the thing there. If you are on the internet, you know what Touhou is. It is, a part of what you're doing. And a big part of that is all of these Flash CDs came out from IOCs, along with other groups doing similar things. You had YouTube groups and MADs coming out for covering various songs and also various arrangements and stuff like that. all really just this explosion of community content. And again, it started out more as like a light-hearted thing, you know, like silly jokes. But as we get into the 2010s, that's when we really start getting, you know, more serious takes on Touhou music. That's where you start seeing, you know, your Foreground Eclipse, your Buddha Tome, your Fell, like all of them really start coming out towards the 2010s. Then we're going into like around 2012. The fan base starts kind of petering off a bit. Internet culture is really big, and now Touhou is not the only thing in the internet space. You also have things like in the otaku community, you have things like Idolmaster and what was it?
Contact Collection?
Contact Collection, thank you. And later on you got gacha games really taking that role of this like mass. The fan base really starts spreading out. Otaku culture on the internet becomes much more diverse at this time. And due to that, Touhou kind of starts undergoing changes. It becomes a little bit less popular. You start having people who join the scene because it was popular start to leave, and what you get are all of the super fans, right? All the people who are genuinely passionate about it. And that causes some changes in the scene, where you go from, you know, having just like people making it because it's popular to people who really care about Touhou and really put a lot of thought and effort and passion into stuff. And that goes along with, as I was saying earlier, with the more emotional takes on Touhou, less silly stuff. You really start getting that coming out here, and you start getting things once Touhou comes to Steam in, was it 2017?
2017, yeah.
2017, yeah. Once Touhou comes to Steam, it just pops off again. I've met and talked to a lot of people, and a lot of people have said, like, oh yeah, once, you know, all these Touhou fan games and stuff came to Steam, that's when I got into it. That is very common for new people in Touhou. For old people, I've noticed a lot of people said, oh yeah, the IOCs, the funny music. Newer people are the Steam games, and super new people are rhythm games, which is why also on here I had like the dates for when round one opens certain locations, because that is also, I've learned, a really big factor in getting some people into the scene. So also worth noting, kind of at this point, you know, around 2020, you know, Akatsuki Records and Shinra Bancho start really coming into their own, start really popping off, and going into, you know, what's happening now, 2020 and beyond. 4 new games, 2 mainline, 2 side, and 1 new music CD came out, along with there have been a few different officially licensed games. Like again, you had Touhou Lost Word, along with Spell Bubble and Daimaku Kagura. In addition, you had some real bangers of games with Mystia's Izakaya and Artificial Dream and Arcadia. We are big fans of those games here. They're really well made, really passionate. Again, you have those people who really care about Touhou working in the scene. And in addition to that, you also kind of have this YouTuber explosion of sorts, where you have all of these different people in the YouTube space making fan content, both fan animations and you know, a lot of fan music. And we'll get into that in a bit. So now, Assi, where can we find all the music?
That is a very good question. So if I answer this question maybe 10 or so years ago, the answer would be very limited. The best choice would be to go to Japan to Comic-Con and actually get stuff. But thank you. But nowadays, around 2018, a new thing released called the Touhou Doujin Music Distribution is basically a shared label that a lot of these circles come together and release platforms online to the point where you can actually get stuff digitally. So you can get stuff via downloads, for example, Boot.pm for Japan stuff and Bandcamp for Western stuff. All of your usual streaming platforms such as Spotify, etc. all work. These days, most physical platforms will actually do global shipping, which is really nice nowadays. And if you're a rhythm game fan, as mentioned before, a lot of big rhythm games will have lots of Touhou stuff. For example, Sound Voltex, Groove Coaster, DDR, you'll find actually here at AWA and as well as Round 1, and lots of Touhou stuff there as well.
Alright, so now we're going to go through some of the big names in the Touhou scene, starting out with vocalists, and we're going to start out with some of the early Dempa era vocalists. So at this time, again, the scene more focused on, you know, more silly stuff, and everyone just kind of worked together. It was a very like fluid scene. So even though you have circle names, a lot of these people like Miko and 3L aren't actually from IOCs. They're just very associated with their works, and they all just kind of work together and make all of these really cool things. And it's very interesting. The one name I'm going to point out is Murami Pop there. I say it's complicated because she did get her start in Karo 9 Destiny, which made both of us very confused. We were not expecting that one when we found that out. And she's now like a metalcore vocalist. So started out doing cutesy things, now does metal, and we love Marami pop here. But going into some other of the big vocalists, kind of more recently, some of them came back, like for example, Nana Takahashi, she's still very active. But you also have some of the, some more people, especially in the EDM space, everyone kind of works together. Personal favorite of these being Nachi, really like Nachi's voice. She has some very interesting songs where she sounds different from other songs, which she has a very unique voice, so when you realize, wait, that's a Nachi song and it's different from what you're expecting, I get very excited. I get very excited. But in addition, you also have, outside of the EDM space, you have Assie's favorite, Ronco. Also like Isna and the Shinra Bancho people also collaborate quite a bit. And also very interestingly, recently the international scene has also seen quite a big boom. So you have, I talked a bit to Current T and Melky Chan, and they work a lot in various different international circles. So one thing to note is there's a lot of people with the same name, but they're completely different people. And you need to be very careful. Sometimes they are spelled differently. Like for example, some people, like for example, Vivian in Vivian, one of them uses hiragana, the other one uses English, but sometimes when people like make a YouTube video and say it's Vivian, they'll use the English and you'll get confused which one it is because there's not unlike with Aki and Aki, there's a difference in which one you capitalize, kind of, but still people don't really follow that. Same with Nachi and Nachi. But yeah, usually you can kind of tell which one it is because they work in different circles mostly. And you also worth noting that Stack and Stack Bros are different people, which I didn't realize until researching these people.
Nothing that. Alright, in terms of producers and arrangers, they follow a similar pattern to vocalists in that they tend to collaborate pretty frequently across circles with each other. For example, Linjin and Nato will actually work together a lot in tandem with Elementas. I will especially highlight Shibeon. He is everywhere all at once. He does mastering for a bunch of other circles. That's where you'll see everything for, yeah, pretty much everything. I'll also highlight ARM and Beat Mario for being two very iconic producers very early in early Touhou music history.
And by everything, I really mean everything. He works with like English-speaking circles. He works in like every genre you can imagine. He's like, you can just basically like Venmo him and he will master your song. Yep. So now going into animators. So there's a lot of them, and I actually realized a little bit after making this slide I forgot Kinemakan and don't have room or time to make another slide for it. But Kinemakan is a really big one from the Dempa era. But yeah, you have some of these major animators. In the Dempa era, they focused much more on having very simple art, but more complicated animations. You can kind of see, like the running animation, the dancing animation, that kind of stuff. That is more common earlier, whereas now we kind of move to the stack style, the Katsuki record style of PV, where you kind of have this really detailed sprite work, and then kind of make simple movements. You can kind of see in those thumbnails kind of what I'm talking about. You have very detailed art, but it's very simply moving on the screen with very detailed backgrounds. And then, so one last thing to go over some of the major players is some of the YouTubers. I've actually talked to all of these YouTubers, including Assi14. And it has been very interesting. Personal favorite out of all these, if you were to check out any of these, I'd suggest the someone with a number. His stuff is really cool. He makes his own art, and it's like Hispanic themed arrangements, because he is from Peru and now lives, I think, in New York, and he really missed the music of his hometown. Yeah, unfortunately. He misses the music from his, home country, so he goes and makes all of these different Hispanic arrangements, not just from Peruvian music, but all these different types. Wow. And he has art accompanying them, and it is just full of soul. It is full of soul. Now, speaking of soul, we're getting into all of the Dempa circles. I told you that. He didn't know what the V meant. Anyway, so starting out, we're going to listen to some IOC songs. If I can find them. There we go. Starting out with Sundays from Math Class, the classics. I love that song so much. Like everything else is like a 15-minute blurb, and I had spent like a minute on just that song because I needed to get that full thing in there. I'm sure you understand. Go ahead. So we're going to start out with the original circle, basically, the thing that really kickstarted the scene. Cool and Create. This is Beat Mario's circle. I kind of use the term interchangeably of a Cool and Create song, a Beat Mario song. Usually pretty much means the same thing. He kind of is a bedrock of the community. He is probably, me and Quinster would agree, probably one of the biggest Touhou fans. The biggest Touhou fan, actually. He really enjoys it. He really enjoys it. Sometimes he enjoys it a little bit too much for even me, but he has his fun. And again, as I talked about before, Touhou Strike is kind of his, not necessarily his debut album, but that is the album that really put him on the spot. That is the first Touhou vocal album, and it is so endemic to the scene. It is, everything after that is kind of inspired by that album. And it has, like, Help Me Aaron and a few other songs. And basically, the rest of his discography is him taking this one album and doing remixes of it. As you can see, it's crazy. Anyway, IOCs. So they're the big one. They're the one. If you're an old fart like me, you know them, you love them. They're very, very foundational to the scene as well. They kind of started the PD craze. Anyway, so go ahead. They have they've inspired quite a lot of fan material. They're a big backbone of the fan base. Cerno, Baka, ha ha ha. While that was in like the instruction manual, the Cerno's Perfect Math class really cemented that, and they did a lot of stuff where they really really inspired a lot of the fan-in a lot of people have for the Touhou project, and there's been a lot of really creative stuff, and there's been also a lot of inclusion of IOC songs in their PVs in various rhythm games, like DDR, my personal favorite. And then as for recommendations, I don't really say that IOC's as much of like an album you listen, or they're not a circle you listen to albums on. You usually just listen to their singles. We looked at a few of their albums, and it's you have like, oh, here's what was it? Here's Maurice Stole the Precious Thing, and then it's like, oh, I can't wait to hear the other songs in this great album, and then it's just all like really
murked by Koichi in a dark alley, which is very unfortunate for whoever's in there. But their instrumentation also, it's much more darker. It's much more rock based, whereas with Dempa it's much more cutesy in terms of the instrumentation. Now for vocalists, we have Ayo Ayapanzu, self-explanatory. We have Kazutora who moves a lot. Particularly with different circles. I will highlight though one particular person, Lilian, because she's responsible for probably a very chaotic history when it comes to what Shinobancho was called in the past. Alright, so let's go. Let's see, in the year 2008, Shinobancho made one album under that title, but then later that year, they shifted to List Triangle, to that new name. So in a couple years, by 2012, Kazutora, the head arranger, decides to make a side circle called Shinobancho. So now we have Shinobancho and List Triangle operating side by side for a couple years, but then by 2017, Lilian gets sick. She says, good night, chat. So what happens is that the whole operations moves over to Shinobancho, and now Shinobancho becomes the main circle for about a few more years, and by this point, they get really popular. I mean really, really popular. But then in 2022, Lilian decides to come back. She says, it's over, we're back. So now in the current year, we have List Triangle and Shinobancho kind of operating, side by side. So now we have a few other recommendations.
Oh yeah. So again, this was much more of a popular thing, like the Dempa stuff. And I know Luke cringes every time I say Dempa because he thinks it means something else. We're going with what we can. So more of the cutesy stuff. Silver Forest did a lot more of that originally. Now they just do Eurobeat. Innocent Key never really stopped doing it, but they just stopped existing in 2018. I think Coco is still around. I know she's in Scarlet Police. I don't know how much she does, but she's like the main vocalist of Innocent Key. She is like the poster child of the cute and funny voice, we'll call it. Also, speaking of poster child of cute and funny, Not a Hero with Hallozy. They, from what I can tell, they haven't made an album since 21. But they again do a little bit of everything. And you also have R-Note. They're the M1 Grand Prix people. They went and transitioned to doing music for a while, and they've also somewhat recently, I think, stopped. I don't think I saw an official thing saying they stopped, but I haven't seen any newer albums from them. So going into now electronic circles, these are some of my favorites. They're probably the biggest section of this whole thing. There's so many of them, so many big names. It is a very popular genre for independent producers because it's very easy to make electronic stuff. You don't necessarily need the same instrumentation like knowledge. You don't need necessarily a whole band to really make a good electronic song. So we're gonna go really quickly. It's End of Daylight. Really like Nachi. Stereotype, this is classic. Touhou Satellite Veracity, one of my personal favorites. This was my study music in college. This got me my CS degree. I saw recently from the Stepmania map, and I really like it. I really like the Touhou as a great voice. This is Frozen Starfall. We're going to go into the German scene at the end of this. The German scene is really active in the EDM space. Alright, so that was the electronic crossfade. We're going to go in starting with Alstromeyer Records here. They are the oldest, but there's a asterisk there because Beat Mario is actually, like, Cool and Creed, it's actually the oldest, but they just make the same song over and over again, so don't count them. But as you can see from the picture up there, you might see the Giant 84 on that last album. I wonder what that stands for. They might have a very large discography, I'm just saying. Again, made an album as of this year. Most popular, again, Bad Apple. The music video wasn't actually made by them. It was a fan thing. Like basically, some guy made key animations and said, "Hey, someone please animate this." And it actually took, I think, a year before someone actually decided to animate it. And now it's like a mainstay of the Touhou fandom. It is iconic. And Bad Apple itself is featured in all of those games you see at the side there. In all of those rhythm games. As for what to actually listen to, I want to go get into EDM music, Alstromeyer is a great place to look. Love Light, if you find that album somewhere, or if you just want to have a feel for the classics, that's the one to go for. That's where Bad Apple's from. My personal favorite is Solet Luna. That is one of they do a frequent thing where they basically have albums that are re-releases of all their old albums, but with a specific theme. That is I forget her name, but May, yeah. That is her album, and there's really, really good songs in there. If you need a seat, there's some seats open in the front. There is also Nachtensicht. That's a really good Nachi album. It specifically has some of the most interesting samples of all time. They sample a Malcolm X speech. Yes, they sample a Malcolm X speech. Like Malcolm X. Yes. Like Malcolm X. His speech is sampled as part of one of their songs, and it's what is going on? But yeah, overall favorite song, Plain Asia. But I also have been listening a lot to Beautiful Sky, as I said before. Nachi, while she has a very distinct style, Beautiful Sky very much shifts that around. It's whoa, this is Nachi, what the heck? And then of course, if you haven't listened to Bad Apple already, go ahead and take a listen. It's actually good. So now, speaking of Nachi, we're going to go on to Zytokine. This is probably one of Nachi's main circles at this point. It is one of the biggest EDM circles. I think it wasn't as popular in the West until recently, where it really started becoming. You start seeing it a lot more in rhythm games. Back when I first got into them, I didn't know anyone else liked them, but now I see quite a few people talk about them. have a lot of iconic vocalists. They used to work with Miku, not anymore. That was like back, they used to be called Cytokine with a C. That is their old stuff, mostly instrumental and some Vocaloid. And then when they rebranded to the Z, and I think 2012, that's when they... Okay, mic cut out, we're going to be loud. So, Cytokine will go to a very iconic album or two. Lin Jin's the producer. He has his own genre on Touhou DB called Lin Jin Pop. It is super iconic. Go ahead. So one of the, can you hear me in the back okay, by the way? Okay, cool. So you have the album Death. That's one of my personal favorites. Not necessarily any song in particular that really stands out, but overall, I just really like the album. It flows really well. Another one is Pleiades, just to really like Tori. It's one of Tori's best albums dedicated to her. Riptide is a song I've been listening to a lot recently. Just came out. It's different from what they usually do, but it has a really, really strong intro. It is really good. Gold also one of my favorites. And also check out Roundabout. It is a little bit rarer of a song. It's a once particular album. It's kind of niche. But if you can find it, it is on YouTube last I checked. It is a really good representation of what Cytokine is. It has all of their major vocalists. It has really good lyrics. If you find a video of a translation or something, really, really cool, heartfelt lyrics. Really, really good sound to it. It is amazing. All right, so now moving on to some of the more instrumental stuff. That's kind of like after Cytokine, we had a lot of instrumental circles coming into the scene, into the EDM space. Starting out with Mohican Sandbag, my personal favorite. They kind of, it's hard to describe what they sound like, very gritty, but they sound like what their name sounds like, if that makes sense. Especially like the album Vibration of Moon. I don't know how to describe it other than it sounds like it sounds like. You'd know if you saw it. It's a very gritty electronic album. And then we also have Rolling Contact. I don't listen as much to them, but they have a more cheery, they're kind of the opposite way. They're much more of a happy, upbeat circle. You also have Crew Necro Lounge, also one of my favorites. They, again, I think are really good study music. Very, very chill, very relaxing. And finally, Jericho's Law, don't listen to it as much. Crew Necro Lounge is kind of like dubstep, and Jericho's Law is too, but they do it in completely different ways. And it's very interesting contrasting. Crew Necro Lounge usually has a more sort of background thing, a little vibe, whereas Jericho's Law is much more like, in your face. And then also after that, you had East New Sound and Amaderas also like core to the EDM space. East New Sound, Amaderas, and Alstromeria all work together. It's good stuff. This is back. Oh no. Okay, we're back. We're back. Okay. Okay. So oh jeez. Okay. Yeah, we're I'm sure you keep going. Pressing. Oh, okay. Okay. East New Sound. What? Oh my God. Well, while we're figuring this out. Oh, we're back. East New Sound. They're good. They work with everyone. So does Amaderas. They're good. Check them out. All right.
Next slide. Oh, sorry. All right. So here we are. What is?
They're different slides. Okay.
They're different slides. Okay. We'll
wait.
All right. So here we have US Satellite. They're best known for their Fantasy Kaleidoscope Members of the Fantastic series. It's basically a fan-made Touhou anime series that was really popular a long time ago. And this is the source of all the questions people have whether or not Touhou is an anime. You can blame this series right here. But also known for having probably the current highest record of number of circles. Excuse me, album at 238. We don't know why this took in particular, but it is what it is.
A lot of work.
We don't know why. So Marisa's the current popular, but Senya really put in the past. She actually retired recently, so it's been fortunate in that regard. So to conclude, we have a few interesting circles cover in the German scene.
Oh geez, this is gonna get interesting. That doesn't even change that. All right. So the German scene is really interesting. You start out with Babe Music. He just kind of gets everyone together. Those two vocalists, Milky Chin and Sasi. So they all come together in Babe Music. Then they all split off and do their own thing, but still collaborate with each other. And so you'll see a lot of different names, and based on this chart, you can kind of tell when a song is from based on which name they're going with. I think Frozen Starfall just released an album. So all of them are pretty active. I know Milky Chin is active. I actually was talking with her and checked up over a few things with her just earlier, just prior to this panel. So go ahead. And so now just some other circles in the space. Biggest one, the most like historically relevant one is Zero Fit. They kind of work with everyone. Again, lots of stuff with Shibayan. We'll get into that later. Zero Fit's probably like if you're going to listen to one, or if you've heard of one, it's probably that. Though Diaozie Zong's also pretty popular now. And recently, Mofu Gakuen and Neo Sanctum just kind of started. Both have 2 albums each, and I really like the work they put out so far. And it's again very exciting to see new people come into the scene. So now,
so in the next section, we'll go through a subset of electronic music called Eurobeat music. This is the kind of music that you listen to if you're trying to like go down a curve at 90 miles per hour, trying to dodge cops like that are driving up on your bumper and whatnot. So this is the music for you in that case. So a few recommendations. We have 2 of the big circles here: Soundholic, A1, and then a collaboration, which is very important. I'll go into that in a bit. We're good. This is probably a lot of rhythm games as well. This song is really good. Let's do one. Alright, so the first circle on the docket comes from Soundholic. They're probably the biggest circle in the docket. With them, what's interesting is that they'll have a lot of guests that come and go, but those guests will stay. For example, Nana Takanashi, Yurika, DJ Kamen, they all came from different circles, but they all congregated here, and they have mostly made their own stay here. No, you have Yurika with a C, not the same as Yurika with a K, from the same circle, by the way. Very confusing. If you want to see more of Soundholic's work, you'll see it in their PVs on YouTube, which is a lot of, and then particularly in rhythm games. In particular, if you're a fan of the esteemed rhythm game Sound Voltex, they have a dominant presence there, so you'll find a lot there. The other big circle to talk about is A1. So what that was different is that you have a much more tight-knit group, but they'll individually collaborate with other circles. For example, Yasi and Aki will work together with Honey Pocket, Elementos works out with Soundholic, and Rude actually is a head of his own circle called Absolute Zero. Now for other people we have Odyssey, who is rare because she's an English vocalist for a Japanese circle, which you don't see that every day. And then if you want to know what an A1 album looks like, if you see an album that says the words Everlasting Zune Tracks Touhou Eurobeat with a cosplay on there, chances are that's probably an A1 album. You'll find them a lot, normally at a lot of deals. For example, at A1.
Here at dealers, yeah, they have a lot of these albums there, so you can pick them up if you're interested.
All right, and then the last circle on the docket is actually an interesting one. It comes from Neck Heavy Records. Oh, hold on, that is not right. Let's fix that. There we go. That's better. We're good now. All right, so Neck Heavy Records. So they're interesting, Australian-based one-man group making Eurobeat arranges. What's interesting about them is that they actually started on YouTube as a small group making simple adaptations of Touhou songs. With them, what was interesting was that they actually make new songs that are adaptations or inspired by the original Touhou songs, but not one-to-one remixes. So it elevated them to the level of actual other circle, which paid off because they have collaborations with real big people in the Eurobeat scene, such as notably Odyssey from A1. So to conclude with a few final local circles, I would highly go to Eurobeat Union. They worked a lot with Soundholic and they're very good in their own right. So the next section is orchestral and instrumental circles. So even though our panel is mostly focused on vocal circles, there are a lot of instrumental circles that are good in their own right. So we'll play a few here. First is Tokyo Active Needs. Very big orchestral circles. It's also separate. Oh, wow, it does? Oh, excuse me, that should not be there, forgive me. Yeah. It is what it is. Alright, so on the left here we have Tokyo Active Needs. So you know them the most from their orchestral stuff that they post on YouTube, but it's actually a sub-circle. So you see here, Kokyo with a K, that's what the circle is actually called in Japan, whereas the actual Tokyo Active Needs, that's actually a jazz sub-circle, which is also good in its own right, they're both really good. We also have Hardy Music, who is interesting because they also do orchestral stuff, but it's much more revolved around a one-person thing. And you will see, Ramen Pop over there, she did a few guest collabs with an orchestral circle, which is really strange. That is a common theme you will see here in this panel. So next, we also have DDBY. So DDBY, the best way I can describe the music is basically music you hear at a coffee shop. So the Captain Touhou series is really big. One other thing is that if you go on their music on YouTube, it's hard to find. It's because he has a penchant for taking down stuff on YouTube for his music, despite there being no other option to view his music. It's not a Comic Con, it's not online, it's nowhere else. So what are we supposed to do? So there's a video here that says how many times do you have to teach his lesson, old man, and that's for a good reason.
Yeah, it's a bit of a Streisand effect going on. It became really popular because he kept like striking down the video over and over again.
We also have here Foxtail Grass Studio. So they're another greatness from the circle. Nowadays they're doing original stuff. But even though the circle itself has moved on, Hamo is very much still in the business. So notably, he worked in Touhou with Shibuya and also Shunbancho. And then lastly, we have two other circles, namely Tien and Marasi. So Tien does the violin piano with rock and orchestral stuff in the background. If you went to a certain con called Touhou Fest in California, he was a surprise guest there, which is really nice. We also have Marasi, the esteemed piano guy at Touhou. A lot of people actually saw his videos online, and they actually played piano because of him. So to conclude with a few notable circles, as you'll see, these are all international orchestral circles, which is really interesting, and they all actually work together.
Yeah, I did go and contact them all on Discord. They're all working on a group project, and I asked if they wanted to go and promote it for this panel, and they never got back to me. But I know they're really busy working on it, so there is a massive like Western collab orchestral album coming out. I don't have any details on it though.
It'll be out soon, Tia.
It will exist in theory.
Alright, so for the next section, we're going to focus on the vibes that DDBY gives and kind of expand on it in more detail in the funk section.
So I never really thought of myself as like a funk person, or especially like I always grew up, oh, rap is crap, But I don't know what it is, but the funk section of Touhou just goes absolutely off. Like there's some genuinely amazing stuff. Even Tama Onsen, which does mostly rap, has some really good stuff. So I'm going to kind of show you what I'm talking about. This is a really like diverse sound for all of these kinds of, beat funky. Starting out with Let's Music Goes. Disco, electronic genre. Tama Onsen, and I actually really like the song. I love Phil.
Feeling is mutual. We'll talk about it.
And this is what Shibuya just does now. Bossa Nova. Alright, so now we're going on to Shibuya. He is known for kind of taking his time to say what he needs to say. It'll be like 1 to 2 minutes before even like the hint of vocals kicking in starts, and you've just got to wait him out. You've just got to let him take his time to speak. Let him cook. And of course, like I mostly like most of his new disco stuff. He has a lot of bossa nova, but that's all he does now. Unfortunately, his new disco stuff's really good. It's very, very iconic. Personal favorite album is Retro Future Girls. Assy over here really likes Magical Catastrophe. Also really like Kokoro Vibration, 11.3 Candlelight Magic goes hard. So now, for the song recommendation, we're going to do Descending from the Sky, She Appears as a Goddess. It's a Japanese title, so that's why it has a really long English translation. And so the thing is, there's someone in the crowd who will say, actually, that's a Sirufit song, but It's a Shibayan song produced and arranged by Shibayan, mastered by Shibayan, while originally on a Sirufit album, then on a Shibayan album. So if you say that's a Sirufit song, then the entire first Takamachi Walk album is not a Takamachi Walk album. Because we're gonna throw hands. We're gonna throw hands. Well, disagree to disagree. We will be see me after class. So now Hatsune Tsumiko's. So one of my favorites. Really like them. Very prominent in the jazz thing. They used to do a lot more with PVs and stuff. Kind of again in that Dempa era. Mostly known for their work with Kinemakan. Really cool stuff. So they have a lot of different vocalists, and the vocalists are probably one of the key parts of this because they have a very interesting vocal range of like, you know, more of the cutesy stuff like Yoka, but then more of the like serious stuff like Vivian and Chenyu. And Art Brown is like the male backing vocalist, and he is frequently used in their choruses to really great effects. You have this really like full emotional sound you get in a lot of their work. And on the side here, I have really finish their sound. That is the culmination of it. They really get the best at their mastering, really have this full, complete sound picture. They go like through all these different emotions. You know, they've got like more rock stuff. They've got, again, some of the more funk stuff. They just kind of do everything and do it amazingly. Favorite album in all of Touhou is RS5, right? I freaking love it. It is masterful. And again, pretty much all of their albums are an absolute hit, or an absolute bop. The other thing to note, last one to note, is Start. It is their final album, released at the same time as RS5, and that kind of capstones them. They made it knowing that, like, oh, this is our last album. They basically worked through the whole RS5 era knowing that they're going to retire soon, so they really put their heart and soul into it, and that includes in Start, where it has one of my favorite things ever, where because they knew it was their last album, the first song on it is an instrumental with these rising synths that go throughout the song, and they just have Vivian, one of the vocalists who sings a lot of English, just say all of the album titles of their entire discography in order. And at the very end, you know, the synths kind of cut out, and she whispers, "Stop." It's so good. I cry every time, unironically. I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan. Felt's really good. Highly recommend checking them out. And another one I actually recommend checking out. They're not as relevant, but they're really interesting, and you see them come up every now and then as Echo Project. So they're pretty obscure, and they're not as important as a lot of the other people I talked about, but I highly recommend checking them out because I looked at them and I was just amazed. They do have funk stuff, but they also have a lot of rock and like post-rock type stuff. It's really cool. They have like sub-circles too, which you don't really expect for someone that obscure. And one of the most interesting things, if any of you read visual novels, the House of Fata Morgana, if you know the vocalist from that, she started as a Touhou person, gal. Like, hearing her, listening to this album, I was just looking at obscure Touhou albums, and I hear this, I'm like, is that the girl from Fata Morgana? It is. And she has an amazing voice. I really recommend checking out Marietta Little Love. It's a very interesting concept album. Again, there's some Vietnamese person who has the full thing uploaded. I don't think it, and the lyrics are on Touhou Wiki, but not on the video. So if you cross-reference those, like I did, I had a good time. Anyway, kind of rounding out the funky stuff. Kind of rounding out the funky stuff, we have the biggest one here is Tama Onsen. Everyone else is kind of just instrumental stuff. Tama Onsen, we did have a slide on them last time, but we cut it because we were getting really close on our time. And Tama Onsen is, you know, a really prominent, is the biggest like rap group, and they're genuinely good. Like even if you don't like rap, they have some good songs. It's mostly, a lot of it's mostly about the Touhou scene, I guess. A lot of it's more, you know, lighthearted stuff. It's pretty fun. It's pretty fun.
Alright, so the next section, we're going to go into some really intense high-energy circles called in the rock scene. So here we have a few crossfade songs. Now one of these is not going to sound like the others. It is up to you to figure out which one it is. Let's listen out to it. My personal favorite. Touhou G.
Sally was better.
I'll save that for after class. Alright, so that was the songs. I hope I got your guess as to which one is out of place. So first is Kishida Kyoran and the Akaboshi Rockets, probably the most quintessential Touhou rock band out there. So you'll know them most from their actual anime openings. Picture on the left is the one from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, Part 6 Stone Ocean. You also might know them from a certain strange Melty Blood song that they arranged at one point. Really interesting.
Also High School of the Dead.
That too, yeah. And then, fair. That too, that's also true. Alright, in terms of Touhou stuff, first we have Magic Star Rocket. This is the first song of their first all-vocal album. So they made a transformation from Studio K2, which is a regular one-man sized band, to Kishida Kyoran with an actual electric guitarist, actual drummers, and an actual vocalist, which is a really big change. Next is Black Market Stray Cats. So I was like falling asleep, while going to Michigan. It's a thing called market sleeping, where if you fall asleep too much, you might crash. So this song came up, it woke me up and saved my drive. So an accurate homage to that. I have known it for that reason.
We are from the Midwest, and we drove down here listening to a lot of Touhou songs on the way, so we got our practice in.
Yep. So next one comes from shoegaze. Their circle is very old, 2004 to the present. So what that means is that you have a lot of guests who come and go and have lots of changes. So some do stick. For example, K2 and Rubico have been around for a lot. Junimix actually left and created his own circle called Orchestral Circle, which is mostly EDM, and that's where he is. Now, when you have so many different people that come and go, the sound changes a lot. So you have like a lot of rock circles. Oh wow, that shouldn't be there. A lot of rock circles, which makes sense because it's a rock circle. But they also have country music out of nowhere. And yes, this is the song I was talking about when I said that it was out of place. And it's not just this circle. A lot of shoegaze's early stuff is really eclectic genre selection. We're going from song to song thinking, what did they mean by this? Now, what we think happened was that they were either theorizing to get that good formula for success at Comic-Con, or they were just BS posting and having a good time. Yeah. So in either case, this brings us to our next circle, PCSL, my second favorite. So for this one, they basically took elements from electro metal, which is a combination of electronic plus metal music with rock, and certain orchestral elements and had them all come together. Now at PCSL, you can still hear each of those key influences. For example, the rough electric guitars in the background, with blaring synthesizers blaring in your face, and then with melodic piano notes and violin strings sprinkled around you. But they all come together and give something unique and create something that's truly PCSL in a manner that you don't get with any other circle. Now here we have Masquerade Circus. They basically took the Persona 5 OST and made it Touhou songs out of it, which sounds like a strange idea, but it had fantastic execution, so I showed on here. Now unfortunately, this circle is no longer doing Touhou. What happened was that PCS's mother got cancer, so the circle decided to do original stuff instead to get a more reliable source of income. So that's PCSL. My next circle is their actual favorite, Buddha Otome. Now there's a wide range of music that they do. It's all thanks to their cast, but Rako is the star of the show really. She's been around the block more than once. She does a lot of collaborations, but this is really where her main stomping grounds are. You know, where she does the stomping. Now I wanted to do 4 slides in the circle, but I got yelled at. So instead we're going to be doing some album recommendations. So first is Budapest 4. This is a compilation album, very good tiny package to get to know a circle really well. This is also a good deal monetarily. Next is Keyboard Cat 17. This is a part of Paprika's side business. So whenever she's not working on Budapest more mainline hard rock groovy stuff, she works on this more relaxed melodic piano stuff. So you have these 2 different aspects of the discography. What Buddha does really well is that it actually mixes these 2 and puts them together in certain albums. This next one, called Curl Purgatory Volume 4, is a great example of that. Last we have, oh boy, Clock of Flowers. This is our mutual favorite, by the way, Ferranco's best collaborative song. So she found really dark and gritty synthesizers that in this edition really blend well with Ronco's deeper timbre, which we really love, by the way. So that's about Otome. Now, if you want a recommendation that's more balls off the walls, my God, do I have the circle for you, Akatsuki Records. It is the wackiest circle on the docket, with PVs that are over the top, even sometimes they're psychedelic, with instrumentation that's definitely unique, with lyrics that make 0 sense. So all this seems strange, but you know what? For those that love the circle, none of that matters. And this is why I can say without qualification that this is probably one of the most popular circles on our docket. Now obviously here, stack, half the energy, intensity, whole 9 yards is all her. But you see, we have a person called Akrock was interesting because he actually left the circle around 2019. So right around the time when the circle got popular, you would think, why would he do that? So what we think happened was that the circle might have started as more of a central rock-based band, which is Akrock's original vision.
Yeah, and then it became just the Stack Show, and he kind of wanted to do things other than the Stack Show. Just other things. Then whoa, that's kind of what.
So an example of that here, the previous kind of went over the top. We have Necromantic as my personal favorite, but I think Yum Yum Yummy kind of explains it well as to where they're going nowadays. But meanwhile, Akrock.
I really liked the Doremi one; it was pretty good.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Akrock created Inurai, which is a much more mainline circle. You will see here Nachi with a lowercase. That is Zytokind. Nachi with an uppercase. That is Inurai. They work in the same circle. They're not the same person. It is very confusing. Now, also see your Kea vocalist because she worked with Inurai in our next circle, Kopeki Studio. This is a new circle that I thought was pretty cool to feature. We have accomplished that, which makes sense. That's a pretty common theme to feature. Now, our next circle comes from Touhou Jihen. This is much more of a breath of fresh air. Whereas for other circles, you're mostly pulsing along to a beat that they give you. For example, in Automa and Katsuki Records, for this one, you're mostly laid back. You're letting music come to you. You're taking it all in. It's much more of a vibe than it is a pulse. And in that respect, it still has that fast pace that rock has, and it's very much a breath of fresh air. Now, it's not an NSY. They work together in the past circle Salad, which is much more slower under post-rock. Bruno's going to cover this in more detail when he discusses the vibe section. So for this circle, they took other influences such as Tokyo Chien, and they created the circle as it is now. In terms of recommendations, Kagura Zero is much more in line with their older stuff. It's slower, takes its time. Whereas Top with Matsuri, it's much more deliberate in its instrument selection. So they're both really good elements of the spectrum. Now to end with, we have a few recommendations. We have Get in the Ring Alex just out. So moving on, we're going to focus on guitar
from the section
and really amp the overdrive and the distortion into the metal section.
Oh yeah. So we're going to start off middle. Personal favorite from here, Takamachi Walk and Foreground Eclipse. We got some stuff with them. Also some stuff on Foreground Eclipse.
This song is something that I love so much. Alright, so first we have two circles, Iron Attack and Under Corporation. For Iron Attack, they're really well dressed in a lot of their concerts that they do a lot. So they went to places such as Germany and Austria. Really strange, but they're all over the place. Next is Under Corporation. If you're a fan of the scene of the game Osu, you will know a certain song called Everything Will Freeze. It's one of the game's most all-time ranked maps with over 54 million plays and a success rate of just under 10%. So moving on, we have Foreground Eclipse.
Foreground Eclipse, yeah. So really like them. Highly suggest. Very easy to find their stuff on YouTube. That QR code there, if you want to scan it, should still link to the YouTube video where all of Foreground Eclipse's full discography is kind of shown in the thumbnail right there. So again, really good discography. Marami Pop big here, and she kind of. We'll go into her more in the next slide, but like she is, really big in like the metalcore scene. And you have two distinct kind of eras from Foreground Eclipse, kind of their early stuff and their later stuff, because they kind of changed around who was doing the instrumentation and who was doing the arrangements. But overall, just really good. I personally, much like their earlier stuff, I especially really like their first album, where Marami Pop had these really gritty vocals. That is, I think it's kind of grating to a lot of people. I know there have been some people who say it's terrible, they can't listen to it. But Wandering, Never Wondering. So good. So good. And then what Marami Pop kind of did later, with kind of going on with more of that metalcore stuff, is started doing Shinigiwa Satellite. They eventually rebranded to Kachi Kachiyama. And what is really interesting about that, Shinigiwa Satellite was kind of doing its own thing and then brought Marami Pop on after Foreground Eclipse. And then when they rebranded to Kachi Kachiyama, they have this really interesting like album art style. Again, that is metalcore album. They're screamo. Those are screamo albums right there. And that is some screamo art, if I'm being honest. So last for metal is Takamachi Walk, and Takamachi Walk is again my favorite like active circle. Like me more than Kachi Kachiyama. They are amazing. I actually got to talk to Noanon And he actually lives in Georgia. However, he had to work today and couldn't come, or else I would have him come up here and talk about his circle a bit. But big shout outs to him, does amazing work. Highly, genuinely recommend Takamachi Walk if you have any interest in like metal genres. Genuinely good. Like, it competes with full on just like dedicated like normal metal, in my opinion. Really interesting vocalists that kind of both do Japanese and English vocals. And again, they have 4 albums out right now, all of them good. Quinster says they only have 3 albums apparently, but we're not gonna worry about that. Again, they are on Bandcamp. They've got a Twitter. Really cool people, really great project. Also really good album art. And just to kind of end off, there's a lot of metal in the space, like a lot. And I don't really listen to it as much anymore. I used to be very into it. Again, I just listen to Takamachi Walk and I'm having a great time. But a lot of metal circles all do kind of their own thing. You'll see them kind of everywhere. The one I want to shout out on this list real quick is Draw the Emotional. The important thing about Draw the Emotional, it's very interesting. If you know any Vocaloid songs, he does, Yuyo Yupi, I think is his name. He does a lot of Vocaloid songs specifically for Luca. And one of the interesting things about him is he originally was doing like Touhou stuff, did some Vocaloid stuff, really dived into the Vocaloid stuff, doing Luca stuff. And then you would know what he did professionally after that. He's the baby metal guy. He's the baby metal guy, yeah. So just interesting how that all kind of works. A lot of these people go and like get onto other projects. He's not the sole person, they work with other people, but he is, on their first album, he did, I think, 70% of the songs. Anyway, moving on to the section. I put my heart and soul into this. This has been what I've been really researching, really digging into lately. It's kind of hard to describe this. I don't know much about music theory or anything, or what kind of makes this. I don't know the difference between alt-rock and post-rock and all of those subgenres, but we're basically going to be talking about here stuff like shoegaze, stuff like post-rock, stuff like alt-rock, FLCL music, and all that kind of stuff, lo-fi, all of it's kind of right here. So we're going to first start out with, to kind of show you to make it more clear what I'm kind of talking about when I talk about vibe music. Minimal electric design to start out with. And then pyro, really like it. Secret, one of my favorites. Disconcerting to you, then there. Start off with the first thing before we get into any of the circles is just we're going to talk about the Hallozy album, because this is one of the best albums in Touhou, like legitimately. I don't really even like Hallozy that much as a circle, but this album is so good, and part of it is because they collaborated with just an actual like music producer who makes this kind of music. And this is, it's a lo-fi like hip-hop type album. Really, really good listening to in the car. We specifically listened to it on the drive over, going through Nashville at like 2 a.m. and it was perfect. It was perfect, going through all of the lights, kind of just, it was a vibe. It was a vibe. All of the lyrics in it are super good, super relevant, a lot about like anxiety and finding your place and stuff like that, very much about loneliness. Really, really a vibe, really the kind of stuff you listen to while staring blankly into the distance on like a skyscraper, right? Just thinking about the reality of the world. That is this album. So moving on to Tengo no Mai and the post-rock stuff. So Tengo no Mai, I didn't actually listen to them that much in preparation from this, but I've noticed they've been very active. They have a very long history, very long tenure, one of the oldest in this kind of genre I made up. And they've been doing a lot. And again, that one album is the one I've listened to, and I will give a recommendation. I don't know if it's their best or my favorite, but it's the only one I listen to, and it is very good. I very much enjoyed it. I can't wait to listen to more of them. I've also, one of the inspirations for this whole section is Sally. Again, we were talking about them before. They've later become Touhou Jihen. And I really like the sounds they go for here. I especially like, favorite one is their first album. I do own some of their albums, and again, like the first one is just really, really good. Really like it. And in fact, like I was listening to it, and I'm like, hey, Assie, I think this is Ronco. I think this is the Clock of Flowers girl. And I think this is better than Buddha Atonement. And it's a better use of her voice.
I personally disagree. So I will leave this issue up to the listener.
That's not what you said
to
earlier.
decide for yourselves. I will rechange that.
Yeah, but Ronco's in it. She does a really good job. It's very different from what she does in Buddha Otome. Highly recommend checking that out if you kind of like what she does. And also is Cairo. We played that earlier. They weren't around for very long. You know, like a lot of stuff in this kind of genre. A lot of it's obscure, but it's like absurdly good for how obscure it is. And Cairo is one of those ones where it's just banger after banger. They, despite only being around for what is that, like 4 years, they've done like so much good work. Especially the favorite is that 8 Magics to Kill the Gods album. Right there, it's a 10 Desires album, and that is really good. Like the whole thing is just amazing. So moving on, we've got Minimal Electric. So Minimal Electric Design and Afterglow, they kind of do similar things. Again, I don't really know where to put them genre-wise. I'm not that versed in musical theory, and I've actually tried researching all these different genres to tell you what like niche micro-genre they fall under, and I have no success doing that. I am very stupid when it comes to genres. But just know that they kind of sound like their name. They sound like you'd expect Minimal Electric Design to sound like. So it's a lot more acoustic, you know. There is electronic elements, but it's minimalistic, kind of acoustic, but with some electronic elements. Their early stuff from the Phase 1 album, or Trail 1 album, is much more, again, in this kind of like vibe music than to Trail 2. It becomes much more funk, still has a bit of that, and then by Trail 3, they start doing more like poppy, pop rock stuff, have a lot more. They start in Trail 2 is when they start doing vocalists. They really start bringing them on in 3. It's kind of like their main focus. And then also worth noting is Afterglow. If you like Minimal Electric Design, they're one to check out. Specifically, me and Massey both listened to a few albums, and we both agree that Farewell with Your Old Adam is really good and is their standout by far. And it's also worth noting that they both collaborated on Asymmetry, which is also a great album. And then we have, this is kind of like the FLCL music portion. It's good. It's good. So 9B Fox is a lot more punk leaning. And it is very interesting because all of their album art either has Ron on it or is Yuri as much, so I can't necessarily give any recommendations. But I have listened to a few of their stuff and I do quite like it. They're probably one of the most active on this like whole list. They're actively, from what I remember, working with different people. We'll get into some of their collaborations later. But also Karage Secret, personal favorite right now. Really high up there. Been listening to them a lot. Again, I own 3 of their albums, which are they're really hard to find, and some of these you cannot find like the MP3s online. In order to research this panel, I had to physically buy these CDs to have access to the music. And I have liked everything I've listened to from them. just constantly good stuff. Really good, really good. And so next we kind of have more of the punk stuff. More angst coming in. And that is, again, all of this is super niche. This is like literally this is, you might find one of their songs on YouTube. And we have done some digging and found like the lossless albums for them, and I've been listening to those, and again, it's really good, but you will need to do some digging to find anything with this. But highly recommend it. Favorite name is TV Shop from the Second Floor. It goes hard. Anyway, so now moving on to shoegaze. So shoegaze is a very interesting genre. It is basically, it's the sound of vacuum cleaners in the background with very drony vocals is the best way to describe it. Which may sound, again, we played a little bit of it before, so you kind of get what we were going at. Very drony instrumentation, very drony vocals. And one of the interesting things, so I don't have anything for Gunjo Ribbon, which is kind of the other extreme on this like spectrum here. If you look, you can see I have their waveforms of the audio from when I was mixing that crossfade. And I literally noticed this, how that waveform at the top from 8686, it's very peaky, like it will hit the top and then come back down, whereas for Last Little While, it is constantly peaking the whole time. It has that very drony sense. So that kind of shows you like the different types of shoegaze, and Gunjo Ribbon is the other extreme where it has a lot less droniness, it is a lot less peaking. And that was just something really interesting where you can visibly see the difference in how they're interpreting shoegaze from the literal like visual representation of the sound waves. It's really cool. But overall, that. Okay, it's good. It's good on the slide. It's good on the slide. Keep that slide up. We have Gunjo Ribbon has a much more varied and wider discography from the others. 8686 has a decent number of albums, whereas Last Little While is a one-hit wonder. They have like one album, but it's a really, really good album. Like really good album. It's out on YouTube, very easy to find. Highly recommend taking it a look. Again, good study music. And then finally, we have last slide, pretty much of the panel, before we do the closing, is the international scene for this. As you can notice, a lot of North American stuff. This genre like really picks up in North America. You have Find Your Way and The Distant Journey to You, same person, Vito. While I do have an American flag there, he is actually living in Japan currently and mostly associates with other Japanese creators. Though he is like an English speaker, he's originally from America. And he's done a lot of collabs with people, including 9B Fox, we talked about earlier. And he's done stuff with Shinikiwe Satellite. So Marami Pop has seen screen space throughout this entire panel, including the last slide functionally. So she's really like prolific in the scene. But also worth noting on the side there, listen to all of these. These are all really good and genuinely recommend all of these. Is Den Shuto worked a lot with Distant Journey to You. They have a lot of collaboration albums. You also have Higan Daybreak. I am personally friends with the guy who owns that, JD, and he's really cool. He's really fun. He was not able to make it out this year. Last year he actually came on and started talking about his Circle too. Unfortunately, he was not able to make it this year, but he's a great friend of mine and really nice to talk to, and I really suggest checking out his stuff. He'd really appreciate it. And then also, like, days before doing this panel, I found out, I don't know how to pronounce them, but the Plantagena? Whatever. They're really good. They do city pop stuff. And I was listening to them, and I was really good, and I actually asked them, emailed them very quickly to reach out to see if I could talk to them a bit about what they were doing. However, I haven't gotten any response from them, unfortunately, which kind of sucks. But they're really interesting stuff. They're on Bandcamp. They have 2 albums out. They're both really good. Really recommend taking a look at them if you like, the city pop sound. And then finally, Molto Merumono is a punk circle from the US. A lot of their stuff is with Japanese characters, so it can be kind of hard to find. But if you just search up that name, which is long, but if you search it up, you'll find their stuff. And it's really interesting if you like emo and punk stuff. And they were the last song in the Crossfade, and I really enjoyed them. I thought what they were doing was really creative and really cool. But to close out, so one of the first things I'll say before I forget is I did do a run in the dealer's room. And I did go and confirm, and I think I have business cards from one of the 2 stand. I'll put them up here, and after the panel you guys can get them. The ones I have business cards from, they are kind of in the back of the dealers. Like you're entering through the door, if you immediately turn left, they are basically way, not necessarily on the back wall, but way towards the left wall. They have IOCs in a lot of Eurobeat CDs. And then the other one is Shazami-chan. She's in the 700, I think 721, but there's a Cerno cosplayer there. If you see him, that is where this is. He's a personal friend of mine. And he, or they have a bunch of CDs, a lot of really obscure stuff that I didn't even know about, and I was literally trying to find every obscure circle I could think of, and I only knew like 3 of them. They do have, what was it, Soundholic, right? What was the one you got? Yeah, I'm gonna say Soundholic. They had Soundholic. They had a few other ones. UA Satellite. They had a UA Satellite one, and a few other of the big names, but it's mostly just completely obscure stuff. That so if you're interested in that, go check them out. They have a giant CD showcase there at both of those stands. And then in addition, we're going to talk about, like, to kind of close out, some of our favorites. So I can start. Big fan of Felt, talked about them throughout the panel. I did go through their entire 32 album discography. I could go into more detail, but we had to kind of, get it going. So Felt, one of my personal favorites. Also Shibayan, really high up there. Again, Shibayan works with everything. Really like his style, really like his mastering. Zytokine has been one of my favorites for a while. Favorite in the EDM space. Really like what they do. They did a lot of collaborations with Felt back in the day, which is how I kind of learned about them. And just overall, just a lot of really good songs. Again, Karage Seek Room was kind of the thing that inspired that entire vibe section. Is I found them out, I'm like, whoa, this is really good. And again, it's like FLCL music. I'm like, oh, I love FLCL. And so I was just getting really into that. And they've genuinely, like, everything I've listened to them has been great. They've been great driving music. I was basically falling asleep in the car going through Chattanooga at, what was that, like 8 a.m.? Like 8 a.m., yeah, I drove starting from midnight. Around 8 a.m., Karage Seek Room came on, and it helped me with the last leg of the drive. Also, again, I used to be much more into metal, not as much anymore, but Foreground Eclipse and Takamachi Walk, really highly recommended. Foreground Eclipse, again, kind of older, not really doing much more, whereas Takamachi Walk, still in the space, still talking to Noah, he's great. Wish he could have been here for this. As for my albums, Rebirth Story 5, again, the best. I could probably put all Felt albums on here, but I did want to keep it a little bit diverse and put out the Hallozy album, again, legitimately, outside of Felt, my favorite album. And again, the Foreground Eclipse album is my most listened to Touhou album outside of Felt in car rides. And favorite song overall, Day and Night from Felt. Again, I talked about before about Roundabout just being a beautiful song, still hold true. And Plain Asia is my running music. It really gets me hyped, really gets me pumping.
So, meanwhile, on my end, Without Toma has been a favorite circle of mine for a long time. It's been with me for a while, ever since I actually first got into Touhou, which is why I have the song here, Transient Beings Humans. It was one of the first songs I found out about when I first started doing Touhou, so it's there for a nostalgic reason. Music Cell is a really good one. It's a very different take from Without Toma. It's a bit more darker, and I love it for that reason. That's why we have here a good album, Notorious Garbage and Bloodchart, which is a bit of a relaxed take, but really fantastic work overall. Shibayan is really good up there. So Magic Catastrophe, this is probably the best album out there, in our humble opinion. Excellent synergy between songs. Every song is unique hit. It works wonders all across the round. Felt and Shibayan, yeah, both really good. And Zaz is a new one that I've listened to frequently. It's good in post. It's a nice change.
Yep. Again, they're not like active anymore, but they're.
I wish they were.
Yeah, they're really good. Well, Touhou Jihan, and you like Touhou Jihan.
That is true. Yeah. So
yeah.
It's number 3 on there for a reason. So.
No. Overall, we really struggled to make time before. We're actually like 10 minutes ahead of schedule, which we did start 5 minutes ahead of schedule. So we're giddy right now. We accomplished the impossible. We had to gut like half the presentation. It was tragic.
For context, last year we had 5 minutes left with 30 slides.
Yes.
In last year's panel, so we had to really like speed run at the very end. So
yes, we originally had about 140 slides, and we cut it down to like 90. So. Anyway, so to kind of go through some of our credits, one of the people who I wanted to talk about but didn't get to and just found out about is Crest. And they actually responded to me like a couple of days beforehand. I wouldn't worry about it. They responded to me a couple of days beforehand, so I didn't get to include any of the content in that interview, but I can kind of very quickly go over it. Jeet Sai runs that, and it is an international circle. He's Japanese, but he works with a lot of Taiwanese vocalists and a French vocalist, and their whole goal is to kind of make this like international scene in Touhou. Because Japan is really, what is the word for it? Exclusive, not insulated, and they don't really like working with like. A lot of Japanese people aren't really comfortable or don't really know how to like network outside of Japan. And Crest's like whole goal is to do that. And it's really cool. They're not very popular in the US because they don't really target an English-speaking audience, but they are really big in Asia. Everyone I ask from like China and stuff knows about them. They're one of the first ones they think about as Circle. So it's again an example of depending on where you are in the world, depends on what you think of when you think of Touhou music. Again, here I think most people think of like Akatsuki or Iosis, depending on how old they are, whether or not they're retired. But going through, again, I talked with pretty much all of those YouTubers I mentioned before. They've all been really cool, really interesting. Especially Nakaran was really interesting to talk to. He was really chill. Someone was really interesting just talking about his inspiration and what he does for his artwork. Again, highly recommend checking out his YouTube just for his artwork alone. It is full of soul. Also talked with Curran T. She's a vocalist who works with a lot of the English-speaking circles. And again, last year I talked with Milky Jam. So as for just shouting out a few of the people who helped, biggest one being Quinster, helped a lot. We have a very specific funny thing where as he was struggling, figuring out like, oh, when should I go film these slides, and was taking a very long time to go fill out his slides because he really wanted to research it properly, whereas I just took like 10 minutes per slide and was just like, eh, which is why his slides are better than mine. I mean, he will get mad at me for saying that.
But he has more slides than me by a wide margin, so it's down 50-50 in that regard.
I trust Rule. But so funny thing is, I told him, hey, in order to go and save time and get more time to go work on stuff, you can go and ask, our friends who are really into the scene for help. So as soon as I did that, Quinster over there gets a DM saying, what was it? A Touhou GM recommendation. It was very funny. It was very. I asked him. I asked him earlier for a recommendation because he went and bragged about how he listened to the entire Amaderas discography, just like ironically, right? So I asked him for an Amaderas recommendation, which like makes sense. But like Touhou Jihen's like, as he tries his best. Anyway, also big shout outs to Cthulhu back there for recording and coming up with the name of the panel. He was the one who originally, we were brainstorming in a room late at night, 3 a.m. at a different convention, and he just said, you should call it, Damn Zune, where'd you find this? And it stuck. So big shout outs to Cthulhu, big friend, big help, big emotional support, big hug. And then again, also my friend, NCC 701, long history on how we call him different things, but I'll just call him by that for here. He has a lot, he goes by many names. He goes by many names. And he translated the interview with Crest, which I couldn't talk about much here. But we had it in English and Chinese Mandarin, but he also changed the Mandarin to be a Taiwanese, like, dialect. So he put a lot of thought into that interview, and he just responded to me in English anyway, so... but I really appreciate his help. Also, big shout-outs to Skeletor for helping a lot with getting kind of a newbie's take on a lot of new music. Really helps give kind of a full flesh out of what's interesting to talk about, what's not. I'm gonna last shout-out is Milf Hunter. Couldn't make it today, but he's out there, doing his job. Let's say he's out there on the grind. Oh yeah, wait, no, he's out of action. He's out of action actually. Unironically, he had a big surgery on his shoulder, unfortunately, and it's been very depressing. But we've been making fun of him every day just to compensate for it. And so just to close out, we got a photo shoot.
Yeah. So this one coming up this Friday at 5 p.m. It's by the this Friday 5 p.m. at Blue Doors, and then Saturday is by the Alpha.
So I think Blue Doors is referring to like that intro area. You know where you go, like the dealer's hallway, and on one end is the hotel, and on the other end is the is like those stairs that go down, and there's also a game room. I think it's down those stairs. We're gonna kind of meet down there, and I'm just gonna go send random people to go and find every Touhou cosplayer. And we're gonna just try to make it work and figure out what's happening. We are running the panel, and all we know is Blue Doors, and we don't know much else. We're gonna try our best, but let's agree if you're here. Let's meet down there. if that makes sense. Just yeah. Just we're gonna try to meet around like 4:30 and just figure things out.
Meet there the same 4 p.m. to 5 p.m.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what we're gonna go by. Yeah. Yeah, I think so. So we're going to be there. We're going to try to meet up a little bit early because we have one friend who won't be able to stay for very long because she also has a panel on Vocaloid, which if you don't get the photo shoot, go ahead and check that out. She's very smart. She had to make last minute changes because of new Vocaloid voice banks just dropped. So she had to change it day of. Yes, that happened last year too. She's a great panelist. Highly recommend checking that out. Also music related. I would be there if it weren't for the fact I have a photo shoot at the same time. But yeah, thank you so much. I'm Kuderin, and
I've been Assy.
14. Put more in that. Come on, do that again. Okay.
That's what it is.
But yeah, Assy has been really worried this whole time because he saw we've both been putting in a lot of work. And I got a lot of slides done early just so we wouldn't fall behind, and he's been, very insecure, very worried. But as you can tell from here, he freaking killed it. He freaking killed it. So, thank you so much, everyone.
Alright, thank you all for coming.
Yep. I'm just going to leave the stack of business cards here.